Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephen Carter. I'm the Editorial Director for Clarion Gaming, and I'll be chairing today's iGB affiliate webinar. Today's iGB affiliate webinar is called iGB Affiliate The Predictions, and for this we've corralled a panel of 4 esteemed industry experts to prognosticate on how the year ahead will unfold for the iGaming affiliate sector. Broadly, we'll be looking at sort of 4 areas: how the transformational developments of the past year are set to shape the year ahead, also the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic going forward, which sort of tech and developments we can expect to be a game changer for the affiliate sector in the year ahead, and also what could disrupt the sector or slow progress. With me today are 4 brave souls donning their shawls and dusting down the crystal balls on our behalf in no particular order. Well, actually alphabetical order really. We've got ICS Digital's Martin Calvert. You want to raise your hand, Martin? Bonusfinder.com's Fintan Costello. Insiders Leanne Johnston, and finally Rightlanders Brian Wilkinson as well. I'll let them all introduce themselves more fully very shortly. There'll be a Q&A section following the presentation, so please do submit questions as we go along, and we'll try to address as many of them as possible in the allocated time. With that, I'm going to pass over to Martin to kick off the introductions. Over to you, Martin.
Thanks, Stephen. And what's that word, prognosticate? That's a good one for this late in the day. So I'm Martin Calvert. I'm Marketing Director at ICS Digital and ICS Translate. We are an international gaming-focused marketing agency based in Leeds, but active in about 80 languages worldwide. And yeah, we kind of often debate and speculate on a lot of these topics internally. I'm happy to do it publicly today.
Right. Who's next then? Fintan, you're next. You're next.
Okay, sorry, it's alphabetically. Hi, everybody. My name is Fintan Costello. I'm Managing Director of bonusfinder.com. We are a licensed US affiliate, so we've got about, I think, 10 licenses, or basically we've got them all. We operate in a bunch of other markets, and in the last week we've just launched in Colombia, so we're very excited about that, hence the t-shirt.
Leanne?
Hi guys, my name is Leanne Johnston. I'm the CEO and founder of Affiliate Insider. We are an affiliate marketing agency and content hub, and we also have our own affiliate management training course called AMP. Thanks very much for having me here today.
And last but not least, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, Brian Wilkinson from Rightlander.com. We're a provider of affiliate marketing and compliance software solutions for operators in the iGaming industry. We're also branching out into other industries at this moment in time as well.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, right. To kick things off, my first question is going to be slightly inevitable, I guess. The predictions are obviously about what's going to happen in the future, but of course, much about extrapolation of existing trends as anything else. And it's of course impossible to ignore the effect of the pandemic here. So our first question to all of you is, how do you think it's going to continue to define the sector this year, and what do you think are going to be the lasting effects of the pandemic? Who wants to take that one first?
I'm quite happy to chime in there quickly. I mean, I think that a lot of things has changed from a marketing perspective, especially in the affiliate space. We have new tools that are coming into market. We were just talking about Clubhouse, where we can engage audiences a little bit more personally. I think marketing automation and personalization is a big thing that's going to come forward, and that brands and even affiliates are going to start looking at to plug into their backends to actually get to know their customers better and customize promotions. I think new trends like esports are going to become a little bit more than just like a hot talked about topic, but actually something that people are going to start making money with. I've seen a lot of interesting affiliate sites come to market that have really good portals and are driving quite a lot of traffic because they're getting in early on the crest of the wave. And also the fact that, if lockdowns do continue globally, brands are going to have to think about how and where they spend their money and in what channels. So being a little bit more, not conservative, but a little bit cleverer about how they distribute their funds.
Thanks, Leanne. Okay, who wants to? Well, you, Brian.
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. I think the most noticeable thing, and you don't need any data points to know this, but lockdowns have prevented access to land-based gambling venues, and that's across the world, basically. That's not just here where we're in the UK currently. I know Fintan isn't, but some of us are. And yeah, so that trend has led to a vast increase in gamblers trying out online gambling and performing transactions online. Typically they might have gone into betting shops to make deposits and stuff. This is a whole new area for them. And I guess that experience will enable the industry to grow, because it is a way of getting people online and getting used to it. We've also seen, regulation is going to continue for sure, and the pandemic had an effect of some countries getting very draconian very quickly without any data to work from. We saw in Latvia there was just almost like a blanket ban. And then we've also seen action from the UK, Sweden, Spain, to name a few. So it's going to increase awareness of regulation. I think that's just going to continue. But I think there's more positives than negatives, in all honesty. So that's my takeaway.
Vincent?
Yeah, I think.
Sure. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. So I think that there's a bunch of things here. I think the pandemic's been a very good accelerator of change. So kind of things that have been put on the long finger that should have been done are happening now. So particularly if you look at, say, the US land-based sector, where introducing kind of contactless or card-based transactions at the tables instead of cash and chips, what seems like very basic things are kind of now being forced through. And I think that's a good thing for the US land-based sector to kind of catch up in these areas. When I look at regulation, I think Brian's point's really good. I think one of the pending issues with the lockdown and the spot regulation, say for example in Sweden, the problem with temporary regulations is they have a really nasty habit of becoming permanent regulations. So you could really see a lot of these things becoming permanent. I also think, particularly in the UK market, with the gambling review and everything that's going on there, it's really going to colour how people look at that. And I think that's really interesting. I think as well, obviously, being incredibly lucky, we're casino affiliates, so we weren't really affected by the sports cancellations. But you're definitely seeing diversification among the sportsbook affiliates into the casino, poker, and other areas as well. So, and again, it's that kind of accelerator of change. So I think like licensing and regulation was going to get stricter. Corona pushes that through. Sportsbook affiliates need to diversify, pushes that through, and all of these kind of things. So it just kind of speeds up a lot of trends. If you look at the working from home trend and these kind of things too, I think it's going to be just more of that, and it's just more of the same but faster.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think some of these practical things that are not in direct control of a particular brand, like regulation or the cancellation of sport and that kind of thing, I think the legacy of that is going to continue for quite some time, because there's people, particularly on the affiliate side, who have taken a major hit in 2020 because they were so all in on some aspect of sport, and then that income just goes. And I think there's a real question for some brands whether they can actually bounce back at all, particularly the kind of hobbyist tier of affiliate. And then for the ones that are more professionalized, it's how will they hedge things in future so they're not as exposed to future disruption, and then also exposure to things like regulations that might be temporary but then become permanent. How can they minimize their exposure to markets potentially being cut off or becoming unprofitable? And I think that's what's focusing a lot of minds at the moment, and it's focusing things in a negative way. So how can I possibly protect myself and batten down the hatches? Other people are taking a different view and thinking, okay, where are things getting easier? Where are things opening up more? Where can I capitalize? And I think that's kind of where it gets more interesting in terms of some of the positive developments, like markets opening up, Ukraine, US, of course, Latin America, lots of different opportunities globally if people can step up.
Okay. Well, that seems neatly takes us on to, we'll probably have to come back to regulation at some stage, I'm sure, because there's obviously going to be some more restrictions and disruption coming down. But it seems like a good time to move on, onto more sort of positive aspect in terms of, you touched on it there, Martin. Martin's touched on it. I mean, where do the rest of the panel see the sort of opportunities for affiliates this year? I mean, where are the big opportunities this year in terms of markets, strategies as well? Obviously, the US's ranking is a very high profile at the moment. I guess there's a potential for explosion of activity there as well. So yeah, so who'd like to take that one first? Do you want to go first, Finton? You've obviously just got the license in Colombia, haven't you? So another one.
Well, Colombia is great. So it's Colombia, the country, not the state. So yeah, we've you don't need a license, so it's great. It's a regulated, but it's a regulated market. So we're super happy with that. Yeah, I think obviously the big opportunities. The US is a no-brainer if you can get past the paperwork hurdle. So the paperwork is not trivial. You know, fingerprints, 10 years of tax returns, bank statements, everywhere you've lived for the last 10 years, all these kind of things. It's very, very, like university transcripts was my favorite. So it's very, very thorough. But if you can get past it, you know, more and more states are going to open up. There's automatic growth built into the market. Obviously, there's a lot of silly valuations being thrown around right now. That'll settle down pretty quickly. But there's definitely growth there in that market. That's a big no-brainer. I actually see regulation and licensing and all the bad stuff we talked about as an opportunity as well, because it will change the nature of the entire industry. And if your business model is designed around it and you've designed things to be able to be super flexible with, say, compliance and everything it needs for a particular market, and have the tools and stuff in place, which I'm very lucky we do, then it actually becomes an opportunity, because it's like, okay, well, let's imagine something crazy happens in Germany in the summer where each state in Germany actually implements its own gambling rules. Well, we can actually take care of that. So we can show different offers, different disclaimers, different CTA buttons, etc., on a micro level if we need to. So which then creates great opportunities, because then we're compliant. Operators want to work with us. We can get better deals because they don't need to worry about it. We get the traffic, and then it's kind of a win-win situation for everybody. So I see a lot of the negative stuff coming as just, you know, there's debt, there's taxes, and there's licensing. So just being ready for that is the right thing, I believe. And we've kind of gone all in on that. So yeah, that's probably the big opportunity I see.
Yeah.
I'm loving India. I think India is like poised to explode. I've been on a number of different events, digital events, over the past 6 months, where I've seen great innovation. I've seen affiliates really like doubling down, getting into that market, localizing. I've seen companies that are, you know, building networks in order to capitalize on that space. The player values are actually quite surprising. If you compare India to Africa as a region that you want to get into, there's actually quite a lot of money in that market. So if you're picking between, you know, emerging markets, I think India is a great bet for 2021. The infrastructure is great there for mobile. Africa is also quite interesting, but I think they're lagging behind. They're not going to get anywhere quickly, like with regulation. So I think if you're happy to sort of pace yourself and get involved in that market, it's still a good bet, because there's obviously the volume of people. But I think India is a very, very interesting marketplace to get into.
Yeah, I think on that one, it's a case of how ready brands are to step up and to keep up with that process of professionalization, which you know, it doesn't seem to be going away either in regulatory terms, or even just what operators are expecting, or even just preferring from affiliate partners. They don't want to be exposed, their brand to be exposed in any negative way, and you know, to have greater control over your own results, and again, to weather the storm for anything difficult. Having a professional setup is key. I do think in a way it's sort of slightly a pity if, you know, the kind of amateur, kind of bedroom hobbyist tier of affiliates kind of withers away a bit, because, you know, I think it's nice to see people with, you know, a passion for their own personal projects. But, you know, it does mean that there is going to be some interesting brands, but, you know, sustainable brands who are based on an affiliate model, who can fill the gap, because operators will always want high quality traffic from the kind of right sources. So I think I mean, almost certainly on this panel there's plenty of opinions about how that traffic can be obtained in the right way in different markets.
The thing is that there needs to be more education. I mean, I'm really passionate about this. There needs to be more education of affiliate managers, because the truth of the matter is that an affiliate manager is no longer just a customer service agent or administrative partner. They need to be a budget owner. They need to be a budget owner that understands where they're spending their money, how they're spending the money, and at what rate they're going to be spending that money. The days of coming in and, you know, coming from a customer service side or a sales angle into affiliate marketing, if you don't start learning and actually improving your digital marketing skills, you're going to fall by the wayside, because the affiliate manager's role is now more like a fund manager, where you're a budget owner for a portfolio or a sector or a geolocation, depending on how your program is kind of divvying up the responsibilities, and you're feeding into the rest of the digital marketing team at a brand. If you're in a big company, those kinds of decisions are complex, you know, in terms of who you work with, who's in the top positions, who's, you know, moving out of those top positions, and what deals you're doing. So really, I think education is a big thing that brands, if you're a small affiliate company or a big affiliate company, you need to be investing to make sure that your team is capable of making those decisions.
Yeah, just to kind of cap off that, I think we also need to move away from regulation being a dirty word as well. Yeah. It's you know, we're seeing now companies, a good example was Unibet recently making a goal to reduce problem players that potentially have problem gambling issues within their customer base from 4% down to 0. And it's basically a sustainability goal, is to do with affordability of gambling and identifying problems in players and reacting to it, not just letting it pass by. And that is you know, admirable of them to do that, be the first to move, but we're going to need, you know, more operators are going to need to do that, and affiliates have also got to carry responsibility in their actions as well, because it's about longevity, and the whole of this market will benefit from that sort of behavior. Just one point on education, which Leanne raised as well. From what I can see, we monitor thousands and thousands of landing pages, just seeing what kind of content is involved. And there is still a slow uptake of locally translated landing pages, operators adopting currencies of the local currency in the country. And I totally get it. I understand there's a lot of difficulty around that. You know, it's not easy to set up, but until that starts happening, the sort of, you know, from what I can see, you know, leaders in this market are people like Leo Vegas, and but there's a whole raft of operators still just operating on euros, pounds, and dollars, and it's something that it's always going to hold them back. And those opportunities in broader markets, and Fintan can probably expand on that, is going to be missed, because it is there for the taking, but you've got to make it convenient for those customers.
You've really touched on a very interesting point that we forgot to talk about, sorry to interrupt, but crypto, in terms of future predictions, that's very fast coming into this industry and bedding itself in.
So why do you think that's going to happen this year, Leanne? Because obviously it's been around for some time, hasn't it? And
because the technology is moving fast.
In 2021, why is it going to happen?
I mean, I'm seeing new crypto casinos launching every day. Every day. You know, whereas we had like 3 or 4 top ones over the past kind of 3 years that have been sort of eking out a place for themselves, you know, BitStars, Fortune Jack, the usual suspects, Cloudbet. But now every day I'm seeing new crypto casinos that are launching. So the technology is obviously moving at pace to implement crypto coin, and I think that's something quite interesting as well. But what problems does it pose? Because regulation in payments is another big, you know, important factor in terms of regulation for gambling. And obviously crypto, there's ways to get around cross-border marketing. So I think that there's, you know, there's a duty of care to the industry to also look at these things and think about how they impact marketing across the globe.
So I think there's a bunch of things in there. So part of it, and I actually think it ties back to Brian's point, the way software and the the back end of the business has developed over the last number of years. It's never been easier to launch a gambling website as an operator. Never been easier. Launch a casino, launch a sportsbook, whatever you want. The difficulty with that is because it's so easy to do, then everybody just assumes, oh, if I launch a new brand, I'm going to make money. I'll go to affiliates, I'll pay them rev share, and I'll kind of de-risk myself as a business owner. And I think what we end up with these situations like Brian has said, where you get landing pages where it's the wrong currency, the right payment methods aren't in place, the text message provider they've done to do verifications is wrong or isn't, it's got poor deliverability. And there's a whole raft of issues all along the funnel that will just, no matter how good the traffic is that any affiliate sending, it's just not going to convert. And then that's without getting into, you know, do you really know how to manage a VIP? Do you like, is your CRM system actually good? And these types of things too. So I think there's a general, you know, one of my biggest concerns always is the quality of the partners that we work with and how good their conversion funnel is and how well they're going to treat players over the long term. And that's the risk we're taking. And then I think from a crypto space, I think it's basically the same. It's never been easier to launch a crypto casino. It's never been easier to launch something on the blockchain. Obviously with the new, you know, $45,000, $50,000 kind of price range, that brings a lot of people into the market. And I think we're going to see a kind of a second wave of that. I think there's some, like you said, there's BitStars, there's BitCasino, there's plenty of good brands who've kind of got a track record. But it is always that kind of due diligence in terms of counterparty risk of, well, are these guys going to be in business in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? And frankly, a lot of them aren't. And that's a big issue for affiliates. It's operators not actually holding up their end of the bargain.
Yeah, I think on that point, you know, if affiliates doing things the right way, who are professionalized, to have, you know, their own brand, they can be more discerning about who they deal with. I think there's still a number of operators, you know, especially new ones, as you know, Fintan indicated, that they assume, oh well, affiliates will do all the work for me and they'll be happy to do it because I'll give them rev share. Well, not really if the conversion rate is minimal, because you're actively hostile to customers with your you know, quality control and how you display pricing and all of that stuff. So you know what we do, like internally ICS, so we work with, you know, probably the majority of tier 1 operators, but also many startups and other people throughout the industry. And really the starting point is to try and figure out what race can you run where you have comparative advantage. And it might be that you cannot have a massive brand ambassador who's a Hollywood star, but you can definitely make sure your website doesn't have typos. You can make sure that if you're doing PPC advertising, that you're not taking somebody to a World Athletics Championship landing page when they've looked for England v Croatia, which is a real example from a major bookmaker when I did some analysis of the last World Cup, where operators were wasting hundreds of thousands of pounds weekly, just through incompetence. So I treat that as an opportunity where other people are messing up. There's scope to find a niche and do things better. But I think that sober mindset is key to figure out where can you fit in to move ahead. And I guess that fits in with the wider purpose of this session, which is, you know, predictions, opportunity. That's kind of the starting point for me, the kind of unglamorous starting point for me when trying to predict a future course for an individual brand. It's like, where do the opportunities lie based on your own advantages and other people's often highly amusing incompetence.
But you know, Martin, you're so correct, because we deal with clients every day. We look at their marketing strategies and we look at how over complex they make stuff, when actually you need to just keep things really simple, really clear, and deliver really, really well. It's all about the execution. It's about making sure that those landing pages are linking to the right places, that the players are being sent to the right places, that when you say you're going to do something for an affiliate, it gets done. And you know, technology is moving fast, but one area of our industry where technology isn't moving fast is actually the affiliate tracking solutions. They don't have marketing automation plugged into their platforms to work with multiple affiliates. When you're running a huge affiliate program across global space, multiple countries, different languages, you get as complex management requirements is what you do with your player database. And yet not one single affiliate platform that I know of in the gaming industry has proper marketing automation software plugged into it, where you can actually customize and personalize campaigns. So we are living in a digital age where we can do that level of marketing automation. And I see Brian smiling at me, probably from your previous affiliate days. I mean, how many times did you get spam emails from hundreds of different partners that you're working with that weren't personalized, didn't tell you about the core region that you're actually promoting? They have all of that data. They're just lazy and they're sending out emails that don't mean anything to you, which wastes your time. You know, I don't know if you still have that experience, Finton, but this is something that needs to be looked at. We have the technology, we have the infrastructure, we know all of this data, we've got oodles of data, and yet we're not able to actively manage all of that.
Okay, thanks, Leanne.
I guess there's an element there about transparency between operators and affiliates, which is a perennial topic. But you know, even now, I'm not sure if it's the case that the people brokering deals on the operator side are able or equipped to give that transparency of information through to affiliate partners. I think, you know, some operators will purposely want to be a bit obscure about operations for, I don't know, whatever proprietary reasons they might want to mention. But I think most of us would like to see more open collaboration between operators and affiliates rather than a kind of, you know, operators viewing affiliates as a source of uncomplicated traffic that they should be thankful to provide. And I guess on the affiliate side, making sure that they don't take the view that operators are all take. You know, should be trying to find some kind of, you know, collaborative ground where they can actually do something that's more substantial than other typical relationships.
Okay, Brian, anything to add on that?
Only that Martin's points there I've been hearing for the last 10 years, and although they're very, very well made points, nothing remarkable has changed in that time.
Yeah, I wouldn't add it to my predictions. It's more an aspiration.
But it's the ones who do it are the ones who win, right? So the partners who are most transparent with us, that we have the best relationships with, we can make long-term plans around. They get the best of us, we get the best of them. So yeah, I think it's impossible to expect every operator to do it. But if you're an operator and you're looking for a competitive advantage, this is how you do it. It's actually super easy.
Okay, I want us to focus a bit more on what we can expect on the marketing and advertising front coming down the track this year. There's a few interesting things that we know are definitely going to happen this year. One is obviously the Google Core update coming this spring. Also, another thing that Brian has raised as well is the sort of Apple versus Facebook and Google. Facebook and Google have obviously been on the receiving end of Apple's sort of anti-ad tracking move last year, and Google's now exploring its sort of alternative to Apple's feature. What sort of pixel tracking? I mean, will pixel tracking come extinct, and what are the implications for affiliates? Do you want to take that one to start, Brian?
Yeah, sure. The answer to your question is I don't know. It really sounds at the moment like Mark Zuckerberg would pick a fight in a room with himself just in it. He seems to be going all out on fighting battles all around the globe at the moment, and you know what it's like when the guy that wants to have a fight with everyone suddenly finds the biggest kid in the school, which is Apple. Things tend to end up a little bit messy. So I don't know what's going to come. There's a lot of people saying that this is the end of pixel tracking, and cookies are going to become a thing of the past. Whether I believe it or not, I don't know. And I think I'll play a game of wait and see. I strongly believe that the affiliate business will adapt to the change because there's just too much money involved. All that traffic is not just going to suddenly be forgotten about, and we'll just forget about affiliates. That's not going to happen. They'll find innovative ways to get round that issue, and there are probably already in development as we speak. It might be a really good thing for the industry, to be honest. It might be a more transparent and open industry as a result, because let's be honest, more often than not, players are not always sure if they're being tracked or not. And regardless of whether you see a you know, do you accept our cookie policy when you arrive on the website? You have no idea what's going on. You're just clicking the button to get past it. So yeah, it could potentially be a good thing, but there will be a period of change, no doubt, if it does come in. But I certainly wouldn't be placing a big bet on anything changing too dramatically. And yeah, I think we'll wait and see would be my approach.
I mean, it's about opting in, isn't it? I mean, that's the way privacy is going into it. It's basically everything is becoming opt-in, isn't it? And so it also comes down to how that process, how frictionless that process is as well, I guess. I don't know.
I agree and I disagree. Sorry to jump in on that. I'm already seeing that big retailers outside of gambling are already just reverting back to opting in as default. So the other day I bought something on Curry's Car Phone Warehouse website, and you know, I was opted into their mailing list. So yes, it is meant to be going to opt-in only, but is it really? I mean, I'm not sure. It seems to be slow, and people seem to be like, I'll just see if I can get around this for a bit longer. So yes, I suppose in 5 years' time, it will all be opt-in, but at the moment, there's still a lot of bending of the rules.
I think I agree with what Brian said. I don't think that we can make any judgment calls on what's going to happen immediately and how that's going to impact the industry. But I do think that affiliates are going to start thinking about their brand less as a traffic source and more like a community, as Martin was saying. You know, they're going to invest more around. And Fintan, please tell, you know, if you agree with me or disagree with me. I think building memberships around your brand and capturing people into that membership so that you can actively engage with them. Email marketing is going to come back. I really do think it's going to come back in a big way, because how else are you going to be able to communicate with people if they're not opted in? And maybe even SMS as well, you know, like push notification, that kind of stuff on browsers, all of that kind of stuff is really important in marketing and in engaging your audience. So I think people are going to start looking at these kind of bits that have been hanging around on the side are not a key area of focus, and they're going to start to think about, how do I actually engage this customer and make sure that they sign up for my newsletter so that I can contact them later on, because otherwise it's an eyeball wasted for traffic that I've paid for to get to my website.
Yeah, look, I think Leanne's hit the nail on the head. It's all about first-party data and not about third-party data anymore. So all the data brokers buying third-party data, your display prospecting based on, you know, DMPs and all that kind of great stuff is definitely going to take a big hit. But if you've got the first-party data, you can get around it. So I think for affiliates, from, you know, realistically, very few gambling operators use pixel tracking that I'm aware of. Most of it's just first-party cookie.
Yeah.
And even then, it's first-party cookie data that gets passed through. That still works fine. There could be a time when that's not going to work and things like that as well. So I'm not saying it's a guaranteed, but right now it's not that big a deal for straight up affiliates. But if you're a media buyer, affiliate, and you're kind of in that kind of space, definitely an issue. If you're trying to retarget based off of pixels rather than, say, email addresses and stuff, it's probably going to get a bit trickier. But I do think it's all about that first party data. So if you've got somebody's name, email address, phone number, they've opted in, they told you what they like, then you're in a completely different space. So I really see that as something you should be doing anyway, regardless of this.
Oh God, we need to find something to disagree about to add some drama, guys. Because I do agree 100%. For first-party data is where it's at. Like, you know, you cannot rely on the granularity of third-party data. It's just eroding. And then, you know, with the case of where it's like an ecosystem like Google or Apple or whatever, you know, a closed system where they can do what they want, regardless of, you know, external regulations or whatever. It's just their policy. They can turn stuff on and off. That's a very risky thing to be relying on. So for me, I think, yeah, building up your brand, building up, you know, meaningful ways for people to opt in, like giving them a reason to opt in. You know, what can you add? Is it personality? Is it commentary? Is it special offers? What would be the draw? And a lot of brands, not just in gambling, but, you know, in other sectors as well, they've got no real compelling reason for anyone to care about them. So I think investing in brand and connecting with customers is important. But also, happily, I think it's also another reason to really double down on SEO, which is obviously a topic close to most affiliates, because you're trying to acquire traffic more cheaply that you then, monetize it for. So if your SEO is on point, you're less exposed to the kind of variances of certain paid channels. And, if you do the right things consistently, you should be able to have that steady stream that you can rely upon. We'll take the point from Stephen about different, Google updates and so on. But, they seem to be less arbitrary than in the past in some ways. We kind of know what they're all about, the criteria. I think a lot of people who lose out, like in December, if they were honest, they'd think, well, fair cop in many ways. So I think we know what to prepare for. We know core web vitals. We know the user experience side of things, page speed, making life easy for visitors. We know all that stuff. And now Google's starting to flex the muscle a little bit with, picking favorites based on those criteria. So it's not hidden. It's not the mysterious, quirky, obscure SEO magic. It's kind of, people kind of know what the deal is now. But I'd say, on that point about tracking in pixels and all that, having your own steady source of free traffic is a way to hedge against that.
I'm still a big believer of content marketing, whether you're doing that in written form, whether you're doing it video, whether you're on Clubhouse, speaking, podcast, whatever. Content marketing is what's going to attract people to your brand. If you give them good content and a good user experience, your database is going to build. It really is about keeping it simple.
So you just think, so Martin, just think in terms of the update this year, I mean, it's been so much hype around this one, hasn't there? But you're just saying you're just kind of boiling it down to the fact that affiliates aren't doing this stuff already. You know what I mean?
I think well, say that again, Fintan.
As you were saying, I think Stephen just said the affiliates aren't doing this stuff already. I'd argue.
No, I'm saying if they're not doing this stuff already. You know what I mean?
Okay. But it's the problem. The problem with the SEO echo chamber is it gets very noisy because there's not a lot to talk about. So with something like Core Web Vitals, Google have publicly come out and said this is going to be part of the ranking algorithm. That doesn't mean it's going to have a big impact. So if you take the algorithm, okay, what's the weighting in that equation that this set of metrics are going to get? It could be huge, it could be tiny. My guess is it's probably going to be tiny. But what it does is it's a great way for Google to force everybody to sort out their websites, and less ads and less moving around and things load faster. And then if everyone's got a better mobile web experience, then you do more Google searches, click on more ads, and they make more money. So you could argue it's just a good way to get the web tidied up a little bit. And we say it's going to be an SEO ranking factor, and then all the SEOs start shouting about it and screaming at clients and all that kind of stuff. So it could be like if you go back through it, like there was mobile page speed was huge. Is it actually a ranking factor? I'd love to see the data. Remember AMP? Everybody remember AMP? And you can kind of walk your way through it and kind of go, yeah, they are, they aren't.
Didn't they shelve that project though? Or
it's still around. It's still around, but they've changed what they've changed a lot of the parameters and stuff. And again, it's a nice thing, but it had its own closed ecosystem issues and stuff. But you should deliver a great user experience. Right? That's your website should be fast. It should load quickly. It should give the user what they want. These are some other metrics you can use to measure that. But using your own analytics data and stuff to measure that too is awesome. So I'm not convinced if we're green across the board, we're suddenly going to go to position one. Like that's not.
I agree for affiliates. And I think AMP, especially if you dig into it, there's definitely some murky stuff going on with AMP, because I think it is a similar case for what you're saying, Fintan, of like Google wanted to tidy up the web and use their frameworks to do it. So that's a bit cheeky. So obviously, Google's come a long way from do no evil. Google just loves money more than anything in the entire world. So, I think a bit of, skepticism with Google is definitely legitimate. I think with affiliates, where typically you're not having massively transactional sites with a lot of stuff going on, they're not subject to this. Typically, they're not subject to the same type of bloat that operator sites are with, closed, platforms. Really taking ages to load and render, or even not being able to be indexed at all because of how stupidly things are put together platform-wise. So I don't think it's a case of you get green light on Lighthouse and you're going to be top of the tree in affiliate terms, because I think for a lot of affiliate sites, the things like page speed is probably negligible in terms of the amount of loading time and things like that. I think what it does mean is that I think some operators will face some challenges. I really do, just in terms of how horrific the user experience is just to try and access an operator site. You're waiting for the games to load. You're waiting for like the even to launch a demo. There's a lag, all that kind of stuff. I think the factor there. I also take your point in terms of the grand scheme of things. The most important thing for SEO are probably still going to be well-structured, indexed content that answers user queries, plus topically relevant links. And well, I think everyone knows ICS is really keen on mainstream media news level links to build brand visibility and trust. So that's kind of the weighting. I would definitely not say forget about links and focus on core web vitals. I think that'd be very risky indeed.
Okay, Leanne's already sort of nailed our colours to the mast, I guess, on the crypto front. I don't want to go around everywhere. You're not all getting away with it, really. As I've said before, I mean, the whole point about predictions is a part of it's extrapolation, and the other part of it is going out on a limb, really. So, I mean, what would you pick out this year? What would you sort of go on a limb the rest of you and say that's going to be truly disruptive this year? Is it going to be esports? Is it going to be casino? Is it going to be the rise of the affiliate streamers? What do you think is going to? What do you think? What would you sort of hang your hat on this year for it being the breakthrough for? Do you want to go first, Vincent?
Sure. So it's always difficult to make these things because we tend to overestimate short-term trends and underestimate long-term trends. I think like everything you've touched on there are sort of they're trends, but I don't think anything's going to suddenly change this year. I think really it's legislation changes. That's definitely going to happen, and I think that's the big stuff that's going to happen this year, or really make significant progress this year. I think stuff like esports, it's on its growth trajectory and it's going to do its thing. Bitcoin, I'm a big believer in blockchain and crypto. I think if you look back at the original thesis for Bitcoin, where frictionless transactions, low cost, super simple, I think a lot of that's been missed now, and it's more of a speculative. But things like NFTs, I think, are super cool, and you can see a lot of stuff. This is the non-fungible token, so you can kind of own digital assets on the blockchain. I think that's super cool, and I think there's some really cool stuff happening with like baseball cards and stuff in America, and I think that's going to be quite an interesting trend. But realistically, it's licensing. It's licensing, or not even licensing. It's just legislation changes. I think that's it.
In terms of licensing, those changes, are you talking about directly in affiliates here, Vincent? Or are you just talking about the kind of the feed through?
Well, I meant to just say legislation in general. I think there's, personally, I'm in favor of licensing for affiliates. I think that's super important, and I think it's the obvious next step. I don't think the majority of regulators are ready for it. I just don't think they're set up for it. But I think that's a shame. I think you should bring in affiliates as part of the fold. There's examples from other industries like finance. So to me, it seems an obvious one. And I'm not. If I was a regulator, it'd be definitely top 5 on my list.
What extent would you to regulate though, Vincent? I mean, it's is it going to be registration and kind of background checks, or it's going to be a lot of affiliation? It's still heavily based on link buying. Can you regulate link buying? I mean, it's what will regulation look like? You know what I mean? So just to
it can be really simple. So it's if you think of a licensing process, it's okay. Well, who are you? What's your company name? What's your company address? How do we contact you? What websites do you own, or how do you do the marketing? Who are you working with? Which operators? And it can just be a very simple kind of. It's like the New Jersey vendor registration process is probably the best example to look at for that. So it can be a very simple kind of just okay. We know who you are, and here's a reminder on the rules. This is what you're allowed to do. Make sure if the UK, make sure you look at CAP guidelines and ASA guidelines, and you know, don't forget to pay your taxes, and, you know, pat in the bum and send you on your way. And it can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be a massive, you know, like a lot of the US licensing process is more about keeping the mafia out of the gambling industry than it is about, they're not worried about me. You know what I mean? It's not personally directed at me. It's just, this is what's have to happen in America for the gambling industry to evolve in a land-based setting. So,
suitability, isn't it? There, do you know what I mean? The focus is very much on suitability of applicants, isn't it? So
yeah, because it mostly, you know, as long as you're abiding by advertising
Yeah.
standards, responsible gaming standards, you know, affiliates are non-transactional, so we're not taking the bets, and there's a clear licensing process for that. So, kind of treating us the same way as a probably vendor, like B2B suppliers, would be, in my view, probably the obvious approach.
I still think that in our industry, we need something similar to what the iGB Council does for affiliate marketing. There needs to be best practices that affiliates adhere to, whatever those, and whether it is, is everybody in your business trained on advertising standards code? You know, like we do with GDPR in a marketing business, every single staff member has to go through the GDPR training in order to get access to the CRM. In the finance industry, every single client, every single employee has to go through money laundering training if they work at a finance company. It could be very simple, as Fintan said, it's just about training. It's about training and having checks and balances in your business, in your affiliate business, to say, yes, we are compliant. We do have a registered limited company. We are paying our taxes every year. This is who our directors are. This is, you know, how we train our staff. Here are our systems. It's about becoming more professional.
For a shameless plug, this is why we joined the RAGE organization in the UK, so the Responsible Affiliates in Gambling. So as part of the membership application, we had a third-party audit. We all undertook responsible gaming training, or we did a refresher and things like this. So I agree, Leanne. I think this is why we joined, and I'll happily talk to anybody who's doing any other similar organizations in other jurisdictions, because I think one of the biggest challenges that faces affiliates is we're all entrepreneurs and we all like to do our own thing. By coming together and working together and having a common voice when talking to regulators, particularly when they're having big detailed discussions about new legislation, making sure the affiliate perspective is part of that discussion, because a lot of them aren't aware. I think it's super important.
You're 100% correct, because I sat with regulators in South Africa and they didn't even understand what an affiliate was. And I was like, you need to be considering this if you're going to be, because they only look at the operator and the player and the tax implications. And I was like, there's a whole ecosystem here that you're ignoring that's going to happen whether you like it or not. And I do think it's about setting common best practices and people adhering to that. And it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be restrictive. It's just about doing good business.
Yep,
Can I offer a counter to that? Sorry. Fintan and Leanne and the network that Leanne coordinates of affiliates, I don't think there's any problems in there really. The problems that we see are actually the kind of people that would never ever want to be licensed as an affiliate or entertain filling in a form that disclose where they live or what they do. Recently, we've done a study at Rightlander into people targeting GamStop as a keyword. So casinos not on GamStop, casinos no GamStop. And we were a little bit shocked actually at the amount of affiliate sites or supposed affiliate sites, I can't really call them that were using that as an opportunity to push traffic to almost unrecognizable brands, ones you'd never heard of before, you know, ones that probably were here for a week or two and then disappear. The same exists in Sweden, almost identical, with the spell pause and some keywords around Swedish licensing. So this idea is fantastic, and I think it's very important to follow through on it, but at the same time it's still not going to eradicate a problem that exists, and that is just purely on the basis that the internet is, there's no barrier to entry. You know, if you want to set up a website, you go and set up a GoDaddy account tomorrow and off you go, and you're you're up and running. And until that is something, you know, until a website can literally be impounded, that will continue forever and a day.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to solve.
Yeah, we enable, because there's a lot of small operators coming to the market who will take any traffic because they're trying to build their business. And it's about ethics at the end of the day. It's about, do you want to work with partners that are going to send you good traffic? Do you want to take the chance and work with partners that aren't going to send you traffic, but maybe will be able to send you some big whales that will, you know, keep your business running? Then you look at the whole white label, you know, as Fenton said at the beginning of our call, it's super easy to start. It's never been easier to start a casino. It's also never been easier to shut a casino and disappear. So obviously affiliates are looking at all of that stuff, and it works both ways. The operator has to be ethical and the affiliate needs to be ethical, and that's when the partnership is magic, as we've said here.
Yeah, I think
sorry, jump in there. I think the US is a really good example of this. So in the US, you've got this big mix of regulated, licensed business, and then the offshore business and everything supporting that. And what we see is, as a market, licenses and stuff happens, the offshore business gets eroded, and it becomes, because you can market and you can do stuff like that. So you can definitely, the regulated market can definitely outcompete the offshore market. But to Breen's point, if you look at, say, Sweden, where new legislations come in, deposit limits, bonus limits, very anti-player type scenarios where amazing offer, or normal offers are kind of available offshore, over legislation can easily create a black market overnight. So we did a study there before Christmas, and we're estimating about 40% of the Swedish casino market's probably offshore now, which is probably not what the Swedish government were going for when they were trying to protect people last year. So there is the offshore market is just a click away. That's definitely a thing, and I think it's up to everybody to make it as uncompelling as an option as possible. But that required, like you said, Leanne, that's the ecosystem. So it's the game suppliers, it's the payment providers, it's the affiliates, it's the everybody else around the ecosystem. So everybody needs to play their part in that.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to solve a problem where there's always going to be some actors who don't see it as a problem. There's always going to be dodgy, unregulated people who actively want to target things like, GameStop terms, and even some, licensed operators who will send a couple of emails around Responsible Gambling Week as a little nudge to try and get people back in. That happens for sure.
Reminding you how much money you had left in your account and
recommending. Yeah, are you aware? Just a courtesy update.
Come on. I got one of those. Very
nice. So this is it. So it is rife, but I do agree with the consensus that especially in places like America where they just really want to make sure you're not an absolute criminal psychopath, and they're otherwise quite in favor of enterprise and entrepreneurialism. There are definitely key advantages to being regulated professional, because you can do cool stuff in the mainstream media. You can get brand ambassadors. You can have public collaborations and be entertaining. And, with some of those platforms that we discussed earlier, like Facebook and Google and so on, if you are above board, while it's still valuable, you can participate in those advertising channels where useful. So it gives you many more options and strings to your bow. And it makes, for us at ICS, it makes life an awful lot easier because there's so many different options in the bag of tricks to help people get the results that they want in terms of SEO or marketing or PR or whatever it is. Whereas, people who are going down the unregulated route, they're limiting themselves for short-term gains. But I don't think that, as Brian kind of indicated, they're probably not open to being persuaded otherwise.
Thanks, Martin. There's got a question coming, actually. I think I must have to say before moving on that we are predicting you guys hanging your hats on the black market growing this year if regulation continues its direction of travel over in Europe. Can we say that's a predict? We're hanging our hats on that one. Okay.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, big time.
Okay. Right, I have a question in from Martin. Martin McGarry, actually. When do we start talking about influencers in the same discussions as affiliates? We tend to assume affiliate just equal a website, but I can see equal affiliate traffic coming from sort of tracked influencer channels now, i.e. social platforms.
So
wants to take that one? Leanne's nodding.
I'll take that one. So I'm very into the whole influencer space. Micro influencers, I think, are going to be a fantastic opportunity for operators if they can educate them about correct ways to advertise a gambling thing. Because just because you're an influencer and you have 20,000 people on your Instagram doesn't mean that you're going to understand what you can and can't say. So managing influencers is it's also a bit of a training thing, because influencers don't want a rev share. Like generally they want to get paid for doing the actual campaign. So it's more like a paid media channel, but it is changing, because as you educate your influencers and your partners about how our industry works and how the payment models work, you know, you can do certain things with that. And there are specialist agencies out there that deal with influencers in the gaming space. I think Goat Agency is one of them. I've had them on a panel in the past. And so I would say, you know, looking at diversifying your channel, but also being cautious. But you know, I know a lot of affiliates that are micro influencers that just don't know, they haven't tweaked that monetization aspect yet on their social channels. So I think looking at that and looking at different ways to diversify your budget between affiliate and influencer style campaigns is a really good idea for this year. So thanks, Martin, for that.
Can I contribute to this? If anyone's looking for a good LinkedIn influencer, then go and speak to Leanne. My LinkedIn has been buzzing all week this week because she happened to mention me on on one of the messages. So
if there's any SaaS providers, contact me. I'll check out your product and then maybe I'll advertise it for you.
Yeah, but
I love that you're plugging each other. It's brilliant. Go on.
Oh, we like to help each other out. Just to wade in on the influencer chat. This was something I was about to mention before the question came in, actually. So I'm glad it got asked. Gambling and influencers, are they good bedfellows? It's kind of an odd one, that one, and we talk about this a lot at our in our chats at work about the whole role of an influencer in the gambling market. It has a place to a degree, but there is so much there's so much areas where this could go completely wrong. And, you know, we've seen it before where people like, you know, it's not fair to name and shame, so I won't mention the footballer in question, but they send a tweet out to 5 million people on their Twitter account, and all of a sudden, you know, there's uproar, because it's like, you've got children on that Twitter feed, you've got, you know, so it's got to be done in the right way. It's got to be done in a controlled manner, and it's got to be very clear what's going on about how they're remunerated, the relationship they have with that casino, that sportsbook or whatever. And that doesn't currently exist, or doesn't exist to the extent where you think it's transparent, in my opinion. So yeah, I think this is going to be if we're going to make a prediction, I personally think we could see potentially the demise of the influencer in the gambling sector, or the celebrity influencer in this industry, because I think it's such a dangerous tightrope to walk along, and I'm not wholly convinced that you can ever do it in a way where your message isn't going out to minors or vulnerable people or whatever, which is essentially the UKGC's top priority, to kind of focus on preventing harm in that area. So yeah, I could be completely wrong, but I just think the whole thing on influencers and gambling products needs to be very carefully thought out.
It's also about the marketing automation funnel that is attached to that campaign. So it's not just about sending out a tweet, it's about actually you know, like, what are the steps that the customer has to do in order to participate in that competition that influencer is sending out. I mean, there are tools. There's loads of tools. So if you're looking to do stuff like that, I can share some tools with you. I think one of them is like Viper.io, really cool tool to do social campaigns, but has that marketing automation plugged in to actually pre-verify, to you know, put the stopgaps in place so that it's not just a public mass spray and pray campaign, which we can't do in our industry.
Yeah, for me, I think there's just a bit of differences between the particular type of betting and gambling. So I think it also relates to how the socially acceptable stuff is. So you've got National Lottery, you've got bingo, which I say is probably seen as cuddlier and more acceptable and more playful than, you know, online slots. Then you've probably got, you know, football betting, and that, you know, slightly, on a slightly lower tier. I think we'll see some good influencer stuff. I think it'll be subject to the same type of restrictions in other industries, having hashtag ad and having to try and be, in the really public stuff to be transparent. However, I think sadly, and probably maybe I shouldn't say, but I do think the murkier side is going to increase. So private Discord channels, private Telegram groups, a tipster on Twitter with a huge following, not being especially clear about, how they've calculated some tips and odds where they stand to make extra profit personally, steering people in the wrong direction perhaps. I think there's an element of that going on that will probably continue. But I think the kind of brand-led type influencer stuff, I'm quite optimistic. I think there's some scope there.
I agree. Because I think it's how you cut through. It's, if there's 500 casinos that all have the exact same games, how do you differentiate yourself and how do you create a brand? So I think it's probably not going to be as heavily used in the UK market, but outside of the UK, I could definitely see it being a big part of everybody's channel.
Okay, guys, I'd like to carry on. We've reached the end of the hour though, so yeah, so we're going to draw things to a close now. Actually, that's all we have time for today. I just want to say thank you very much again to all our esteemed panelists today for joining us and sharing your insights. Today's webinar has been recorded and available to listen to on demand shortly on iGamingbusiness.com for you to rewatch and share with your colleagues. Otherwise, we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank you
Dave.
so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
See you guys. Okay, that's it. I think
we're no longer